and welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal. I'm really pumped up for tonight because we're going to have a lot of cool information to give to you this evening. And we just wanted to just welcome everybody. I think we have a lot of new members that just started up tonight. So I'm really glad that this will be your introductory show and that you're looking forward to this evening because I know me and Troy are both really ready to go. So just another reminder, if you're looking for other content, we have a video about Native American stories and traditions that we have in our Luke Blue Eagle section. So you might want to check that out. And we'll also be having Luke Blue Eagle coming down to the show later this summer. So it is going to be great. And I hope you'll be able to join us then because he is going to be having a series of different shows, and he's also going to be focusing as well on crystals. He came and he spoke with us last year about crystals and Native American traditions, and that was really well received. And so he's going to be coming back again with some new information. If you happen to be in the Calgary, Alberta, Canada area, I think it's this May or June, I think, he is going to be doing a workshop for crystals and as well and Native American traditions. So you might want to check that out. So you just go to Luke Blue Eagle and you'll find all the information there. He is great and we've worked with him a lot in the past. And he has also, we've done some work with him in terms of his Native American traditions and also other documentaries. So check that out on our page. If this is your first time, please like and subscribe to our page. As you know, with YouTube, the analytics really help. So if you could like and subscribe, why not? You know, because sometimes if you don't have time to go to the meetup page or whatever, you'll be able to get all the information that we send out. So please like and subscribe, and yeah, you know what to do. All right, so we're just going to wait for others to join us, and then we will get back and start the show. everybody. How are you doing? It's Crystal, and welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. And today we have an amazing presentation that is going to be taking place today. It's going to be me and Troy J. Bacon doing an amazing presentation. I am so excited. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. Tonight is going to be about the Egyptian mystery schools. And when we were doing research, I know that when I was doing research, it was quite extensive. There's a lot to be learned with these mystery teachings, and so Troy and I will be back. For a series of presentations to talk more about the mystery schools and to go more in depth into this sacred knowledge. But first up, I'd like to introduce Mr. Troy J. Bacon. He is a holistic healer, Reiki practitioner, and is also working with quantum hypnosis. And he is very well known, especially within the UFO community as well in Seattle. And he's been on the show before. So if you've been here in the fall, he has presented a lot of interesting information, and he is such a wealth of information, and I absolutely love him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Troy J. Bacon. There you go. Hey, Troy. How you doing?
Hey, Crystal. Thank you very much for for holding this and inviting me. And I'm so excited to know you are too.
Uh-huh.
This is really a treat. And a little bit to add on to your introduction. Um, I talked a bit about my walk-in experience last fall, and so that was awesome, and a few other things, a few other events associated with that. Um, and so this is actually kind of like, I could say, part of my mission as a walk-in. I think specifically with this Egyptian mystery school knowledge, and I'll be presenting that shortly, starting the presentation and diving into it. But um, I want to say that it was a few months after my actual walk-in soul exchange that I was still in a transitory period and figuring myself out as a soul, why I'm here, and what this all means, being here as a new soul. Um, and then in a quantum healing hypnosis session um, with a friend, then I did learn all about that. And really, after the hypnotist asked me um, what my purpose is here as a walk-in, my soul did respond with the message that my main purpose is to learn to heal all of myself from the inside and out, on all levels, everything that that can mean, as well as to teach that to others, because let's be real, I think that that's what the whole world needs right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's part of my mission. And so then after that, what was it? I think it was actually a year after that. Um, one of my other friends, and actually she used to be one of the directors or kind of call ourselves organizers, but anyway, an organizer of the Seattle UFO Network. And she actually stepped down though after one of the other fellow organizers way back when tragically passed away of a heart attack. That was a different
Oh,
era.
that's a shame.
Anyway, she moved out of Washington to another state with her husband for their own reasons. And so she had like this bag of various books she thought I'd be interested in and was giving them away. And um, yeah, she ended up giving me a bunch of books. Quite a few of them I passed on, but some of them I kept. And fortunately, a couple of them that I guess my soul was truly invested in, I didn't know at the time, but um, was this book, The Temples of Light,
Okay.
which has been instrumental in my journey. as well as another book that I can recommend and
Can
that
you show
I'm
us the
bringing into you.
book? Can you show us the book a bit more and just maybe pull back a bit so
Yeah,
people can see it? And
that
who's the
the
author?
Temples of Light.
Who's the author?
Uh, the author is Danielle Rama Hoffman,
Okay.
and so
Okay, so
I
we're going to
could,
put that information down below in the chat for everybody. So
yeah,
don't worry, everybody. You'll be able to see some of that information tonight. Thank you.
yeah, and this Temples of Light book is really a workbook for Egyptian initiation.
Hmm.
Another one that I can recommend to learn. I don't think it's as much of a workbook, but tells you a lot more just about
Hmm.
Egyptian temples and gods and goddesses, and this whole mystery school gives you a better perspective. Is The Inner Guide to Egypt.
Okay.
Um, it's the Temples of Light is more of a direct workbook
Hmm.
to experience it, as well as the Inner Guide to Egypt here is more like a gives you a different perspective
Hmm.
of kind of how to interpret and understand some of the teachings
Hmm.
and their origins. But yeah, those are two of my primary guidebooks that have kind of set me on this path.
Okay.
And but I've learned from other people as well and
Hmm.
other sources on my journey. But it was when I started doing the exercises that my energy really started to awaken.
Okay.
And as I've gotten deeper and deeper into this course of initiation um, exercises, that actually the author Danielle Rama Hoffman,
Hmm.
I should say, of this book, The Temples of Light, she says in the beginning that she made many trips to Egypt. And I think she actually experienced all of these initiations and like visited all of the, I think it's about 13 temples, ancient temples that are located all along the north-south oriented Nile River. Um, I could go on and on about
Yeah.
what that means, but basically it's a journey that takes you into the temples and the gods and goddesses and their work. And so she brings it to the world now. And
Okay.
I'm so grateful for that, for having this a bit more accessible. But yeah, really, I think it's wonderful that
Hmm.
there are so many authors now who are authentic and who have truly devoted their lives to these sorts of mystery schools and have made some of their teachings accessible either through
Hmm.
books or also events and workshops and other teachings.
Hmm.
Um, so we are in a different age now, the age of Aquarius officially, where
Yeah.
Pluto is transiting through Aquarius. And um, I do also want to say that I deeply have reverence and respect for this tradition. It's a part of um, the history and the livelihood of my soul.
Hmm.
After my walk-in, I started to be aware of my um, strong affinity toward Egypt and Egyptian spirituality, and um, it's been a journey. But yeah, so
But here you
this is
are.
yeah, here I am, and so actually, I'll explain more about it as we go. But
Sure. So
one of the
oh, sorry.
go go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah, so I actually also have some books that I wanted to share, if that's okay. I would also have some books that I wanted to share.
Yeah,
Growing up, my mother really shared a lot of the esoteric arts with me. And if you could see my whole library, I was surrounded by books. I think that was my mother's greatest treasure, was her books. And she had a very strong affinity to Egypt as well. And what's interesting is that she had a past life regression, and she found out that she was also priestess in Egypt. So that's actually kind of interesting. And I've been also interested in the mystery schools as well. And I think to add to what Troy has brought up, because he's brought some really, really good books, is also some books by, if those of you who have been doing the path and you've been looking at different types of information about Egypt and the mystery schools, you're probably well aware of John Anthony West. John Anthony West was one of the eminent, I would say he himself was obviously was he wasn't a formal Egyptologist, but he dedicated his whole life to Egyptology, and as well he looked at different aspects of Egypt and went against the grain. And if you know what John Anthony West talked about, he worked a lot with Robert Bauval, who's also discovered the mystery of the Orion's Belt and how it was related to the Egyptian pyramids. But he also discovered, made a lot of discoveries about how Egypt might actually be linked to cultures that are much older. And the Egyptians always talked about a much older culture, and then for that matter, Atlantis. So there's a lot to discover, and there's some ideas that maybe some of the knowledge that came about in the mystery scrolls came from Atlantis as well. So we'll be looking at that. But one of the books I wanted to recommend is The Serpent in the Sky by John Anthony West. He also has a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's also a great video on YouTube called The Magical Egypt, where he's hosting and talking about directly about the mystery schools. And one of the people that John Anthony West talks about is R.A. Shoala de Lubitsch. He is also an author that created a book called The Temple of Man. And The Temple of Man looks at Egyptian looks at how Egyptian, well, it's not so much architecture, but sacred knowledge, the sacred sciences, because the sacred sciences are all about architecture and also music and also astrology. Everything was all built into one. So these temples were there to affect how humans, there's my cat, how to affect how humans related to the structures and to the natural world around them. So that's great. So if we wanted to start, if you wanted to get going there, Troy, we can get going.
Yeah. So I'm assuming I have screen share
Sure.
privileges. So
There we go.
start the presentation. So I titled this presentation Beyond the Pyramids, the Egyptian Mystery School, and Methods of Therapeutic Application. Um, I chose the name Beyond the Pyramids because, of course, we all and the whole world knows about the Egyptian Giza Plateau pyramids, um, which, of course, are because they're well known. Some people think those are like the main pyramids or the pyramids of the world, but they're just three of hundreds, probably hundreds of pyramids around the world. Um, I think on every continent, I could say, almost every continent. There are ancient pyramids and also ancient stone temples. Um, and perhaps we could do another presentation just sort of on the evidence and apparentness of this much more ancient civilization that some people call Tartaria, and evidence and links of some of these temples together. But for right now, this is an introduction to the mystery school of Egypt. And this is going beyond just the cliched surface appearance and knowledge of a little bit of the pyramids. Um, some of you watching may have visited the Egyptian pyramids, which um, definitely I'll be going back there in this body. And yeah, anyway, this is a deeper look into what some of that means. So for right now, Crystal will I'll be commenting, but Crystal will be introducing a bit of her knowledge also about what are the Egyptian mystery schools, sort of what that means, why they're called mystery schools, um, and then I'll be talking a lot after she introduces, and um, we, yeah, we have a very special sacred presentation. Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, so what are the Egyptian mystery schools? And we will be looking at different aspects here. And so we'll be looking tonight at what were the Egyptian mystery schools, how did the mystery schools operate, the gods and goddesses associated with the mystery schools, how modern mystics can draw valuable insight from these teachings, and how this knowledge can change spiritual practice and growth. So let's go. Okay, so what were the Egyptian mystery schools? Well, the Egyptian mystery schools were ancient institutions dedicated to preserving and teaching esoteric knowledge and spiritual wisdom. These schools are often referred to as the House of Life and were typically associated with temples such as those at Karnak and Thebes. They focused on the mysteries of existence, the afterlife, and the universe. The teachings include astronomy, metaphysics, philosophy, science, mathematics, sacred geometry, and magical practices. And these disciplines are said to help the initiate understand the universe's grand design and hidden order of nature. These sacred centers were gateways to higher consciousness that allowed these initiates to transcend ordinary reality and to offer keys to divine and cosmic truths. Now, just to sort of make a little commentary here, what's interesting about the mystery schools is that it's not just that they were in Egypt and just for Egyptians, but what I'd learned during some of the studies that I was doing is that you have people like Pythagoras, people like Isaac Newton, even someone like Napoleon, who became initiates to the mystery schools. So that's kind of interesting. And there was a lot of preparation involved. And I think Pythagoras actually waited 20 years before being admitted to the schools. So it's something that was really revered. And many people, and especially in the Greco-Roman world, went to Egypt to study in these schools. So they were well known long before the New Kingdom, but in the Old Kingdom especially, they were well known, and they were built at around the time of the Old Kingdom. But it's still not clear how they really came about, because a lot of that knowledge was kept secret. So it's interesting to be here and now and trying to uncover some of that mystery. So we'll go back. Okay.
Indeed, Crystal. Yeah, I also want to just mention on that note that the Egyptian mystery schools really are a um, sacred practice for your own self and inner and spiritual development, really of leading to the evolution of your soul is like the purpose, and maybe even more than that, as a goal. But yeah, it's not something to um, just play around with and um, have fun with. It's really a life study, I would say, um, but also a healing practice. And um, it is one of, like, this is in every culture, but or something similar is in every culture, that there's this deeper wisdom school of mysteries that an initiate usually, especially in older times, would have to wait years of some sort of preparation, growth, of maturity, proving themselves worthy of even starting to learn any of this, even at like the entry level, basically. And then there's what's very common, like in Egypt as well as other cultures. Um, there are usually levels. There are usually different like sects or different teachings within a school, and so you have to start at like usually the beginner level to even start to touch the surface of this. And then after you pass or are deemed to like to be steeped enough, then you can progress a bit more and more.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's why elders um, are so often the ones with actually true high magic. It's not for children. It's not for those who don't understand it. It does take a while to understand the stuff and refine yourself
Hmm.
and really understand what life is and what spiritual
Yeah.
evolution is.
Yeah, and you know it's interesting because I think that there are a lot of it's clear that in this day and age, I mean, there are definitely people who are looking for this knowledge and are looking to advance themselves. But you know, it's in some ways I feel that people are not looking to their elders, and
Mhm.
they don't really respect that knowledge because let me tell you, the person that I was at 20 is not the person that I am now, and it takes life to really expand and to have the maturity to enter. And I know that, like I was saying, that someone like Pythagoras waited 20 years. He, you know, and many other people that entered the schools had to be ready. So I don't see anybody of, let's say, you know, 15 or 20 would go in, because sometimes you read about how in different cultures people have young initiates. But from what I understand, you really had to be prepared to enter the school and to drop everything and to not have any kind of attachments outside. Now, what's interesting is that someone like Pythagoras returned from Egypt and opened up his own school, and you know, started with you know, transcribing and also spreading that knowledge. So it's what was interesting is that the mystery schools were there for people to study, but then but some of that knowledge also was disseminated throughout the ancient world. So it's that's the reason why we're able to even have some of the information that we have now, because of the fact that many people spread that knowledge. So we're very lucky today.
Yeah, and before we go on to the next slide,
Mm-hmm.
Crystal, I want to say I'm very grateful that you found this image.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not sure which temple that is. Do you
I think
know?
that's the Temple of Dendera, if I'm not mistaken. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another temple, I'm blanking on the name of it, but
Mm-hmm.
one with 42 steps, temple dedicated to Osiris, that the description of the temple and the initiation with it um, is very similar, I think, in appearance to this window
Mm-hmm.
and these beams of light that come down on the floor. Um, Basically, an initiation
Yeah.
of light progressing from the feet to the crown.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to it, but that's sort of an example
Yeah.
of what Osiris can be like as yeah, light and just awakening from the feet to the crown. And let's dig into Osiris pretty
Mm-hmm.
soon.
I
But
just have a quick question here from a Peter Hanna. And
mhm.
Peter Hanna asked, why was such preparation to this esoteric knowledge required? Aren't all individuals worthy of knowledge? What was the rationale behind this hiding these truths from the general population? Well, you know, put it this way, not everybody has the maturity, and maybe you do, but a lot of people don't. And if you have, and you have to understand that the mystery schools were talking about some of the most powerful magic, some of the most powerful ways of manifestation, and an understanding of the universe. Now, if you put that much power in the hands of someone like, you know, someone who is a Dalai Lama, a lot of beauty can come from that. A lot of growth and spiritual growth and healing can come from something like that. If you put that kind of power and that kind of ability to change things in the hands of a Hitler, what we think would happen? So the priests would really make sure that the initiate was ready both spiritually and mentally to accept all that power, and to make sure that they weren't there for their own ends. This is a spiritual evolution for the human being. It's a development for the soul as well as for the mind. And you had to be really the person worthy of that. You really have to be, you know, the best of the best. And I understand some people might look upon that and say, well, it seems like it is discrimination, and I get that. But at the same time, it really had to be something that was it was important to make sure that people who were pure of heart, because in Egyptian spirituality, the heart is the center. It's not the mind, it's the heart. The heart is where you really have the brain, and it's really who you are as an individual. And if you have a dark heart and are going to use that, amount of knowledge and power to overthrow kingdoms or to kill people or do stuff like that, that is going to be a corruption of all that spiritual knowledge. So I hope that helps you to understand why only certain people were allowed into the mystery schools. Okay, so I wanted to just sort of answer that question. Okay.
That's a good answer, Crystal. And yeah, I'm certainly grateful. I think we all are that
Yeah.
people like Hitler didn't
Can you imagine?
acquire or weren't able to acquire more power than he already had.
Yeah.
And that's also another example of the importance of, um, uh, I guess you could call it gatekeeping, but sort of protecting
Yeah, absolutely.
such advanced knowledge and power. And yeah,
Exactly.
this is not just like power that can be abused. It's like you really, yeah, the individual needs to go through purification processes in the beginning
But
to even,
yeah, you
yeah,
need to have the
to
right
go further.
intentions,
But
though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because this is something, and I used to think in a similar way that this sort of knowledge is good to get out there and people are ready for it, but I look at the world and the truth is it's not. This is not just a YouTube or TikTok teaching in a video. It's not just a meditation video. It's not just a video talking about the chakras. It's much
It's a whole other
much deeper
level.
than that.
It's a whole other level.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. And I hope that answers your question, but let us know if you have any further
Yeah.
questions or
Yeah. Peter,
if
let
that
us
makes
know.
sense. And I also want to say quickly that I do believe in some resources kind of support spiritual evolution for free or healing for free. Um, but this is a type of, it's not just a free meditation or something. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But for those who are truly serious about their evolution and ready to um, actually what the Egyptian mystery schools can teach a more advanced initiate is the the ability as a soul to grow and empower and become sovereign enough as a soul to actually choose if you come back as a human or not after the body ceases, is the way I put it.
Yeah.
So let's go. Do you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
read
sure.
this
Go ahead. Yeah.
slide,
So,
Crystal?
yeah, so the origins of the schools are believed to have been established around the time of the Old Kingdom and around circa 2686 to 2181 BCE. And while these centers were around for a long time, their popularity peaked during the New Kingdom from around 1550 to 1070 BCE. They were specifically located near sacred sites such as the Temple of Karnak and the Temple of Luxor. And it said that these sites, the connections to the divine could be felt most strongly. So unlike our current time, which is what I was trying to impress upon here, is that the ancient Egyptians regarded knowledge as a force that connected humans to the divine universal source. And the mystery schools were believed to have been established by divine figures such as Thoth, who was considered the creator of these sacred texts. Now, like I was saying at the beginning, these texts were said to be from Thoth. Now, if you understand a little bit about the Egyptian mythology and Egyptian culture, is that they believe that there was a time called Zep Tepi, and Zep Tepi was a time of the beginning where the Egypt came out of the primordial waters, and this was a time when humans walked with gods, and so this was the golden age, and this was the age where all the Egyptian culture began. And it's funny because if you look at different cultures, they talk about how, in different, even in the Bible, they talk about how the gods walked among men. And so it seems that this is something that really did happen, because if all these different cultures are talking about how when the gods came down, you talk about the Maya, they talk about how the gods were here and then they left. So the gods were definitely here. And, you can either talk about gods or, and then so this is something I want to sort of also talk about and explore, is that maybe also ancient astronauts came down and brought culture and civilization to humans. And some of that culture was also a part of the mystery schools. I don't know if you wanted to sort of comment on that there, Troy?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we'll have to do a whole other
Yeah.
event digging into that ancient astronaut, ancient civilization theory and evidence for that. Um, but I think this starting to peel away and introduce and gradually, we're going to do more of these, but dig deeper and deeper into some of the basic truths of the Egyptian mystery schools.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a lot more relevant in today's age, especially after the recent archaeological,
Yeah.
like actual archaeological discovery that was announced of those giant pillars under the Egyptian pyramids. And yeah, until that discovery, most people only thought or knew that the pyramids were just um, these stacks of multi-ton bricks on top of the desert. Um, and if back then, thousands of years ago, they had the technology, whoever that technology came from, um, to plan, to construct, um, really with perfection, precision that we can't replicate today. Um, if they could do that, then that I would not be surprised as being a result of either the creation from or collaboration with interstellar people,
Exactly.
stellar
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because if you know the work of someone like Christopher Dunn, he talks about how the pyramids were definitely power stations. And if you look at the
Mhm.
discovery that they had in Egypt recently, it looks like it's a part of a power station. It was very interesting.
Well,
And
isn't it also Nikola Tesla in our
yeah,
more recent
Nikola
era
Tesla
that
talked about that as well. Yeah,
exactly said that and then replicated it or created a
exactly.
tower that created powerful
Exactly.
electricity?
Yeah. So they talked about how the pyramids probably, and that's why there's so many pyramids around the world, is because they were using that as a grid to send energy throughout the planet. And so
Hmm.
that's very interesting. But I digress.
Yeah.
So I'll
Let's
go to the
keep the
next one.
pace moving, but
Yeah.
yeah, some more introduction and then I have gods and goddesses to talk about.
Great. So the high priests and priestesses of the schools were the pillars of the teachings, as they were the ones who entrusted with the sacred knowledge that was at the center of Egyptian life. These mystics were believed to have a direct connection with the divine spirit. Their role is crucial as they were the ones that acted as a bridge between the gods and the humans of this world. They were versed in secret rituals and divine symbolism and advanced spiritual practices. They conducted the initiations and guided the spiritual development of the initiates. Above all, they preserved the ancient knowledge and made sure that it was passed correctly to the next generation. Well, you know what? It's this is the reason why a lot of that information was probably not well known outside of the Egyptian mystery schools, because they were actually passed down by people. And I mean, I'm sure that it's not clear if they had scrolls or documents, but it was definitely a oral a teaching where they would pass it down to the initiates directly, and that it was up to them to make sure that they understood it, because in a lot of older cultures they don't have, apart from, let's say, what people were, they had hieroglyphics and they had scribes, but really the majority of people really didn't do any writing. And so it was important to have an oral history, to have an oral understanding of what they were learning. And so it doesn't surprise me that this is how they were able to pass on the knowledge and to make sure that you understood the knowledge properly in order to pass it on. Troy?
Exactly. We'll have to do also a presentation about Egyptian symbolism and hieroglyphs and such, because actually I've learned that, and there's a lot more for me to learn and dig into about this, but basically the hieroglyphs acted as some of the first tarot or oracle symbols. Um, Not exactly tarot, because that is more like a modern era system that was apparently created into cards by is it Robert White
Well, the
or
I think that the tarot is something that actually began in Italy. I think that in
yeah,
Italy, I think
it
in
did
the
it's
Renaissance, it was more sort of, but it was based. But see, don't forget what's interesting about the Renaissance is that the Renaissance was a time when Europeans were rediscovering a lot of these old
yeah,
teachings, and so they
yeah,
were basing the
and then
tarot on a lot of those old teachings. And the tarot is a part of the teaching that made its way down through the ages, and so people were using that because there's a lot of it may not have been like you said tarot per se, but definitely a type of function that took place in Egypt was definitely there and was passed down. Yeah.
mhm. I know that the Egyptian hieroglyph that looks like a flag is actually the hieroglyph of Isis,
Okay.
representing her divine feminine kind of grace of the wind and a breeze and a flag. But yeah, that will be an interesting presentation. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
definitely. Yeah, I also want to say that the preservation and protection of these practices certainly is not to limit the evolution and the power of lay people, but yeah, just to preserve it and keep it keep it fresh and keep it correct and accurate and in alignment with true divine gods and goddesses and source energy.
All right.
Okay, so now we get into the mystery schools and the process of initiation.
Yeah. So the mystery schools operated through a hierarchical system and where initiates underwent rigorous training and initiation rites. This process was deeply symbolic and transformative experience that were created to guide the seeker towards conscious awakening. The initiations were divided into different levels that led to a more profound understanding of the teachings and self mastery. This process was not only about acquiring knowledge, but purifying one's body and spirit as well. So, one of those stages. Now, this is and I want to be clear about tonight is that we are going based on what we understand of the different stages and the different types of practices. As you know, depending on what books you read and what are the sources you follow, you will get different types of interpretations. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that based on our understanding, this is what some of the rites and initiations were like. So getting back here, so stage one would have been purification. Students were asked to clean their body through fasting and their minds through meditation practices. And this cleared the body of negativity and worldly desires. And what I understand is that, for example, the purification took place over, let's say, about 40 days once you were actually accepted into the school. So, you would have to meet with a priest and be allowed to enter. And once you're allowed to enter, then you would go through a certain series of fasting for 40 days, basically. So you would eat very little, and then you would be also actually cleaning your body, because what some people may or may not know is that when you entered a temple in Egypt, you had to be clean. So even if the pharaoh wanted to enter the temple, you had to clean your body completely and wear fresh clothes and ceremonial oils to get into the temple, and so you definitely had to be clean of body, and then that meant also changing what you were eating. So as you know, fasting includes drinking a lot of water. Probably not. I mean, it's not clear, but most likely you probably didn't eat any animal flesh or anything, because that was also considered a very lower energy. And I'm not trying to promote any kind of dietary restrictions here. I'm just trying to say that this is what was happening. And fruits and vegetables and water at much higher vibration. So by eating that, you are raising your vibration, because in raising your vibration, you are able to connect to a higher source. When you're obviously of a low vibration, you're not gonna have the connection. So that's probably what was happening at that time. And it's also, this cleared the body of negativity and worldly desires. Because if you're going to become an initiate, again, you cannot have an attachment to this world. And now you can be of the world, but not attached to it. And if you know anything about Buddhism, that's basically the basic tenets of Buddhism, is to devoid yourself of any kind of spiritual attachment. And so again, this is also goes back to what I was saying about how they were very careful about the initiates that they allowed in, because they wanted to make sure that you were not obviously a negative maniacal person, but also that you were here to do the steady and to be focused on the steady, not to use it to make a buck somewhere else. So that was a part of that whole aspect. Did you want to add anything to that, Troy?
Yeah, I guess that describes that first stage pretty well of purification. Um, I just wanted to say that kind of related to the modern era in our medical sciences, I can definitely recommend, certainly 40 days is a good starting period, but to look into, I have his book here, I believe. Um, I'll just recommend this quickly, but the clean, um, the clean diet is one that I've done multiple times. Um, Gwyneth Paltrow and other celebrities have also done this, but it's basically mostly liquid foods, um, morning and evening, a little bit of solid or soft foods for lunch, and um, it really helps clean out the body and clean out all of your chronic pains and inflammation if you have any. And basically, what that does after a while, too, even after like 48 hours is all you need of fasting or caloric restriction to trigger autophagy, which is known as when cells eat basically themselves and eat the dysfunctional and broken and dying parts of cells, so that then anything that could possibly become even cancer or a tumor or any other diseases literally just gets eaten up by the body, and then your body's physically purified and feels a lot lighter. So that's what I can recommend, but I also do recommend like that's just recommendation. Definitely, if you want to go deep into that, I recommend reading something like this whole book, Clean, by Alejandro Younger. He's a medical doctor, as well as consult with your primary care provider, and especially a nutritionist or natural doctor too, to get actual guidance of fasting and trying something like that carefully.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that you had a comment here from Peter Hanna. He says here that's very interesting. 40 days of fasting pops up in the Bible frequently. Well,
Hmm.
what's interesting is that a lot of what's in the Bible is also a lot of what was drawn from the Egyptian culture as well. So it doesn't surprise me. But what's interesting is that when you're fasting, especially when you're fasting with water, and you're starting to hear now about people doing a week diet, week, 2 weeks, up to 3 weeks on doing just water. It not only cleans the body, but what's interesting is that when you're fasting and your body is not take it up with having to digest food. People have a tendency sometimes, and it's not everybody, but sometimes have a tendency to have, I guess, like visions or spiritual visions. And this is important because in order to understand it's one thing to sort of study the teachings, and it's another thing to have contact with them, directly. And if your body is not as focused on food, then what often happens is that people have a little bit of an enlightenment, they have an opening. And especially if they're in meditation, for example, like Buddhist monks, they will meditate for days at a time without eating at all. And what that does is that it allows them to really, really enter another realm of reality. And when you enter those realms, you begin to get some of the information, because the information is all out there, right? And anybody can, let's say, for example, connect to the Akashic records. And when your body is not filled with food, it is now lighter. And again, going back to vibration, your vibration is lighter. And if you're lighter, then you're able to access all that knowledge. And so the knowledge will definitely come down to you. So if you're sitting there meditating for 30, 40 days, you're probably getting a lot of that information that's coming to you as well. So I think that that's really kind of very, very important in terms of making sure that your body's clean to, and at that point, access, but also to better understand. Because I think because a lot of the information in the mystery school was encrypted, and it was encrypted so that those who really had the eyes to see, would be able to understand the information that was coming to them.
Very well said, Crystal.
Yeah.
Also, another part of the Egyptian mystery school is that anyone can learn, as they get into it a bit more, and even experience later on, is ancient Egyptian mystery schools actually teach downloads of information from the stars that is actually depicted in some of the ancient temple inscriptions of like lines coming down from the stars into a person's head. We can definitely dive more into that, definitely into other presentations and events. But yeah, this is just a taste of how deep and rich some of this goes. And yeah, this is just Egypt. I have other mystery schools on the dock too.
Sure. So moving on. So stage 2, the trials. So students were then led through a series of tests, challenges to break away their initiate's ego, and their fears and self-doubt. One of the most crucial of these tests was the symbolic death and rebirth of the student. This was a symbolic journey into the underworld known as the Duat, and this journey was meant to overcome their darkest fears. Through this process, the initiate would shed their false self and be reborn as an enlightened being. And I just wanted to sort of touch upon that because one of the things that I think it was Napoleon, he slept, I think, inside the pyramid for overnight or something like that. And I think that that was also a part of one of the trials, is to make sure that you were alone and in the pyramid alone, and any kind of fears that you have, you could conquer. And what's interesting is that if you conquer your fears and you conquer any kind of doubts that you have about yourself, you then become free. And by becoming free, you're able once again. So we always keep coming back to how once you throw away the ego, because fears are a part of your ego as well, right? And once you throw away some of those fears, you become free. That means that you're open to receive knowledge. You're not blocking it, because fears, first of all, as all of you must know, when you have fears, you block yourself from any kind of high knowledge. And if you have fears or if you're distracted, you don't get the downloads, the information. And so I find it interesting, especially in today's environment, that there are a lot of people that have a lot of fears. There's a lot of fear being put out in the news and the media and all that kind of stuff. That brings down your energy, and that stops you from opening up to the higher knowledge that's out there, because it's a lot more subtle. It's at a subtle level. And even though there are more people meditating, the media is out there trying to bring people down with all this negativity. And so in a way you have to say that we have to try that much harder to sort of block out the noise. And it's interesting because more and more people are starting to turn off the TV. A lot of people don't listen to the news. And I think especially at this point in time in human history, it has become more important more than ever to have a closer connection to the divine. And it seems that that's what's happening because people are starting to turn off and turn away and come towards people are coming back to the knowledge, people are coming back to the magic, because something like, for example, like the Wiccan culture and paganism is at an all-time high. It's blooming, it's blasting, because people are wanting to come back to mystery and they want to come back to the sacred knowledge. So it's interesting how what seems to be a bit of a trend is actually an internal wish to come back to that mystery that we've lost, because we are more on the science and less on the spiritual. So that's something that I think is interesting. And the idea of the death. Did you in your research, Troy, learn a little bit more about what they're talking about with the death and rebirth cycle, like what they're trying to bring
Um,
here?
I haven't actually had a lot of like deep dive into the duat concept of Egypt. To me, that sounds similar to the mythos of Anubis, who takes the soul under the river of Styx and then weighs your heart against a feather. And if your heart is heavier than the feather, you don't get to meet Osiris. If your heart is as light as or lighter than the feather, then you do get to meet Osiris, um, who then Osiris is the resurrection spiritually. Um, the way they describe this, and from the little bit that I do understand, the duat and the death and rebirth cycle does sound kind of reminiscent of not only the walk-in experience that I had, because a lot of me did have to die and literally be reborn. There was a split second of actual death, as the soul that was born in this body had to be like basically the cord in a way I think was cut, and then it was a very careful psychic surgery procedure. But then my soul as a walk-in had to be like attached
Okay.
instantly, but we could do that only
Yeah, sure.
because we were connected via oversoul. Um, and so that's like a little death and dying, but then I had also months of a void in my heart, and then had to basically resurrect myself over a long period of time. But that also reminds me of this modern day phenomena that a lot of us have heard about of near-death experiencers.
Exactly.
And just as all ancient cultures and civilizations have described or had some way of describing an afterlife that is experienced, and like a specific structure or way it looks, it seems that a lot of near-death experiencers are describing a lot of commonalities to these
Exactly.
days, what happens after leaving their
Exactly.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Anyway, we could also go on and talk about that.
Yeah.
Perhaps we
But
can cover that in greater depth too, but
sure.
that's a bit of what I understand.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up the connection with the near death experience, because I think in one what I understand is that one of the trials that they had to do is that they literally, I mean, I'm not sure how they did it, that'd be kind of scary, but I think that they actually are managed, I think, through maybe either through ritual or through any kind of substance, that they were able to stop the heart and to actually have the person come close to death. And I think that
Mhm.
is that part that they did. They actually had an actual trial where the people actually got close to death, And in doing so, we're able to have that near-death experience, is what you're discussing. And obviously, you don't have to, I mean, you already know, but everybody must know that when people have near-death experiences, it completely changes them.
Mm-hmm.
Completely changes their outlook on life. It completely changes the way they see the world, the way they see themselves, the way they see of what's important in life. And they come back as a much better human being. Because a lot of people said, before I had my near death experience, I was this kind of guy or this kind of woman, and I didn't care, and I didn't believe in any a lot of that stuff. And then when I had the near death experience, when I came back, I was completely changed, and they're a much happier person, and they're much more spiritual and much more connected. So whatever they were doing in the mystery schools to initiate that, and I think it's through substances that they were able to expand the mind, and in doing so, were able to have the initiate get close to death. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually had them in a coffin like structure where they were there, and they went through all that so that they could explore what it meant to die. And so it also changes the way you think about death as well, because a lot of people have said, look, a lot of people are very afraid of death, but if you've had that near death experience, a lot of people say they no longer fear death. They know that it's just another transition into another form of energy, into another form of existence. So there's nothing to be afraid of. We are taught to be afraid, especially in the Western culture, of death, but it's nothing to be fearful of. I mean, of course, nobody wants to die a horrible death, but it's definitely, you're taking everything that you've learned, and you are you're taking yourself with all that knowledge to the next level. But also, when you come close to death, a lot of people talk about how they have experience where they understand the whole universe. All the questions that they've ever had are answered, and they understand so much, and so many people come back with all this knowledge of what the world is about. And so it makes sense that in the Egyptian mystery schools, that they would want to go to that level, go to that edge, in order to see what was really at the other level of existence. So that's definitely makes sense in that level. So passing on to stage 3. So here, this is the receiving of the sacred knowledge once the trials were completed. The initiates entered the final level of ascension. It is at this point where they receive the sacred knowledge. At this stage, they learn the secrets of the cosmos, sacred geometry, divine secret rituals that would facilitate their ability to transcend the material world and come into alignment with the universal mind. So one of the things that people have been talking about recently is sacred geometry. And sacred geometry, and especially as I had outlined in this book here by Ira Schwaller de Lubitsch, he talks about how sacred geometry was used in building of the pyramids and many of the temples, because sacred geometry used actual, not only just mathematics. And, it's funny, when people think about mathematics, we think about this old, dry, boring European approach to math. And that's not what, I mean, yes, it's math in that sense, but mathematics in Egyptian culture was tied to the arts, was tied to music, was tied to architecture, to everything. And it had a much more larger encompassing aspect of life. And it was also art as well. And it's sad that that mathematics, and especially sacred geometry, has fallen by the wayside in a sense, because math is such a beautiful concept. Now, don't get me wrong, I can't stand the modern day math, barf, but it's definitely, in terms of sacred geometry, it would have been very important to understand how math and the way of the earth worked in simultaneously together. And a lot of the temples were built using the sacred geometry, because it affected the body. And I know some people talk about feng shui and all that, but and I mean, I guess that's sort of like a very different perspective, but it's something to that effect where the temples, when you would walk into the temple, you would feel different in the temple. The energy that was created in walking to the temple, because the temple is built in a certain way, would actually change you as an individual. And what's interesting about the geometry of pyramids is that pyramids actually help with human growth. They help with healing. People who have been under pyramids explain how they find that they heal much faster, and that they're much and it changes their perspective. It changes the way they meditate. It improves your meditation. So there's definitely something to be said about sacred geometry. Did you want to say anything about that, Troy, in terms of your own understanding?
Yeah, all that sounds accurate. Actually, the Great Pyramid is one of the temples in which there's an initiation for in this Temples of Light book, um, and one of the initiations that I do. But that's only one of them. There's like 13 initiations in this course that I know. Um, so yeah, there's a lot more temples, a lot more like beneficial effects of energy activations, energy clearings, of refinement, of creating your life, basically. Um, I can talk more and more about that. It's really for, yeah, for people who are truly ready for evolution. But um, yeah, definitely the pyramids and yeah, the temples were built with geometry. I think every part of them.
Yeah.
I'll talk a bit more about the temples.
Sure.
We're we're a little bit, I'd say, behind
Yeah,
on
sure. So
time, but
I'll let you take the
yeah,
reins.
let's keep things moving. I'll try to go through some of these
Sure.
in a timely manner, but feel free to chime in, Crystal, too, and we can talk about some of these. So, um, I want to talk a bit about the Egyptian gods and goddesses, their traditional essences, and the therapeutic benefits of being initiated with them. And this is my experience. Some of these, this is the history. Um, so let's see. Sorry, the Zoom screens are like in my way right now. I move these.
Yeah.
So Osiris was the god of fertility, agriculture, the afterlife, the dead, and resurrection. He was typically depicted as a green-skinned deity with a pharaoh's beard, partially mummy-wrapped at the legs, wearing a distinctive crown and holding a crook and flail. Osiris was central to the myth of his own death and resurrection, where he was killed by his brother Set, dismembered, and then reassembled and brought back to life by his wife Isis. He became the ruler of the underworld and the judge of the dead. And I want to say quickly, this sort of line as the ruler of the underworld and the judge of the dead has a very like dark and deathly kind of connotation in American English, as people might hear it. But really, he's the the god of the afterlife, as I would understand it, and then the judge of who gets resurrected um, spiritually, or who gets to basically, uh, I guess we'd call it ascension, but like raised to another level of evolution, maybe after their their body ceases. So I think that's the way I would put it. But
Okay.
um, he's he's of the light, I would say, not of death.
Well, not from
Osiris
the
was seen,
Western perspective. Definitely not.
yeah, it's sort of a, I would say, mistranslation in that way, but this is, yeah, that's the Osiris I understand. Osiris was seen as the embodiment of a resurrected king and was closely related to the cycles of death and rebirth. During the first time occasion, known as Zeptepi, a time of emergence of the world from the primordial waters, Osiris and the other gods ruled on earth and taught humans civilization and agriculture. Um, also, sort of in the next slide, um, this is a bit more about Osiris that I have here, but basically, Osiris is known as the um, one of the gods of the Nile. Um, I think the most popular one, but not the only one. And what happens during what is it? The dog days of summer, the 40 days of summer, where the star Sirius rises before the sun on the horizon um, in the east, then those are the 40 days that have been known as the dog days of summer because the Nile River floods in Egypt and inundates the surrounding lands with water and fresh new crops coming up from the ground, a resurrecting of seeds and crops, literally. Um, and so that's like the practical biological resurrection of what happens. There's so much more I could talk about that myth and also Sirius in that way and stars, but so that's Osiris, and Osiris being a god of resurrection, he helps an initiate to awaken or reawaken their Ka, their vital life force energy. His symbol is the pillar of Jed, being Jed being the name of this hieroglyph that is said to be the first name of Osiris, um, which represents a tree, the human spine, and uprightness. At least those are some interpretations. Some of the initiations that involve Osiris have the initiate to practice the activation of their spinal energy, Kundalini, activating their ability slash sense of engaging with life and recognizing symbology in all things, creatures, nature, events, and life around us. The raising of the pillar of Jed is one of the initiatory practices that the initiate will learn early in their journey. And this could traditionally this would be ideal after the 40 days or so of
Mm-hmm.
fasting and purification practices.
Yeah.
But this is sort of what I've been taught. The way I learned it too is learning this early in the actual initiations. It is depicted in the left depiction of King Teti and Osiris raising the pillar of Jed. And so this is what the pillar of Jed looks like in Egyptian temples and
Mm-hmm.
depictions. It's like this pillar with these four cross sections.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, there's been some speculation and interpretation about what that actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, maybe in ancient um, advanced times, it was an actual technological
Yeah,
device.
that's what I've heard as well. I've actually heard that as
But
well. That it might
the
be an actual electrical wire or cable or something.
maybe they're just tilting it back up after it fell.
Yeah.
Who knows? But maybe it was a lamp that
Repairs.
fell over. Um, but yeah, basically the glyph, I understand it, that was used for Osiris looked like the top half of this pillar, basically with um actually more like this widened bottom here, and then these four cross sections, and then the top of it, kind of symbolizing a tree in a way, but
Mm-hmm.
also it does look very reminiscent of a human spine with vertebrae in it.
Mm.
Um, and so that's also interesting. I think it, just like other glyphs and symbols in other systems too, I think that can be a hieroglyph that can represent multiple things. Just like some other symbolic languages that use characters. that can have multiple meanings, kind of depending on the context that they're used in. So, without the pillar of Jed slash spinal column erect and activated, the rest of the mind, emotions, body, and spirit complex may not function in its best for the rest of the initiations. That's what I could say about that. And so I think that's why, at least in the way that Danielle structures the initiations in this book, is it sounds like she does it in a mostly traditional way that she learned it from Egypt, but Osiris is one of the first few initiations, and some of his practices are early in this series. So um, I think that's why, because you need to learn how to activate your spinal energy if it's not active yet. Um, and moving on to Isis. Isis is one of the most important goddesses in ancient Egyptian mythology. She was revered as a powerful magician and healer, capable of curing the sick and bringing the dead back to life. Isis was also a model of motherhood and was worshipped only in Egypt, but throughout the Greco-Roman world as well. She played a significant role in the Osiris myth, where she resurrected her slain brother and husband, Osiris, and protected their son, Horus. She was believed to help the dead enter the afterlife, and was considered the divine mother of the ruling pharaoh of Egypt. Her name was often invoked in healing spells to heal the sick and was featured prominently in funerary practices and magical texts in the 1st century BCE. Pharaohs in Egypt and rulers in Nubia built temples dedicated primarily to Isis. Her power of magic allowed her to govern over the natural world and wield power over fate itself. I just want to mention before we go further that some of the ways, like the ways that they depict Isis, as well as Sekhmet, Bastet, and other goddesses, are kind of distinctive, but have some similar traits. Often, like a sun disk over their head, and especially I would say Wadjet, who I'm becoming familiar with as a goddess, and Sekhmet often have a sun disk encircled by a cobra, and the cobra being over their forehead. That's very symbolic.
Yeah.
Basically an Ouroboros there, in a way. Egypt was the origin of the Ouroboros symbol in the eastern continents, but there's also Ouroboros used in ancient Mayan and Aztec spirituality. So it's interesting that it's like a global symbol. Maybe it even goes back to Tartaria. I also want to say that it's kind of symbolic reading this that Isis played or what was it? She had a part in helping
Enter the
souls
afterlife? Okay.
into the afterlife, and so that represents, like, as she is the goddess of love and compassion, femininity, and fertility. That suggests that there is an element of like divine love
And divine
that you have to
motherhood
pass
as well.
through to guide you into the afterlife.
Yeah, there's definitely
So,
the motherhood aspect of that as well. But you know, it also but she's also a very, very powerful healer and a powerful magician as well. And just to
yeah,
sort of comment on what you said about the discs and in particular about the discs on the head and the snake. In many different cultures, the snake, especially the cobra, is seen, snakes in general are seen as carrier of knowledge. And that's interesting because when we talk about the Bible and we look at how Adam and Eve were given knowledge, I mean, I had to bite an apple to get it, but snakes are often connected with knowledge. And I think that in many different, especially in the Western culture, we have basically bastardized that and see snakes as evil, but they never were seen as evil in the ancient culture. They're always seen as knowledge, as carriers of knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were. In the same way they were um, vulgarized by St. Patrick and Christians, and
Exactly.
the pagans were called snakes as they were chased out of Ireland and other areas too. Um, Personally, I consider that a compliment if I'm called a snake these days. But
Exactly. You're a
yeah, like
carrier of
really,
knowledge. Why not?
yeah, um, yeah. The Ouroboros is also an interesting symbol. Um, Spiritually, one of the meanings of the Ouroboros, as it is often around the sun disk too, in Egyptian depictions, um, represents the oneness and circular nature of basically souls incarnating into bodies, um, disincarnating from bodies, and then returning basically to what we call an afterlife or a spirit world. And then usually we reincarnate into another body, most of us, until we're ready to evolve and move on further.
Exactly.
That's also what mystery schools are for, I'll preface. Um, I just want to share a quick story too that
Sure.
years ago I was in a yoga school, integrative yoga school, and I went to a retreat. I trained in a very old building in New York State, um, and I saw this white orb pass over me. And so I asked one of the um, center leaders what they have to say about that. Um, Basically, one thing they mentioned is that that's the purpose of doing something like either yoga. By the way, there's also a form of yoga from Kemet, which was the ancient name of Egypt. Um, but there's Kemetic yoga, and so there's yoga practices of various sorts from other various parts of the world. But you do yoga practices, mystery school practices for truly evolving yourself before your body ceases, so that your soul doesn't become a wandering ghost.
Okay.
It doesn't become attached to a place on earth. It doesn't stay either as an orb or a ghost or a phenomenon on earth. So that by doing mystery school practices, some of them daily, some of these Egyptian initiations you can do just once too, and receive a great benefit from them.
Yeah.
Um, and then your soul, before your body ceases, becomes light enough and sovereign enough to basically progress with source, progress back to returning to source and not have to reincarnate. But that's one of the essential purposes of a mystery school, I'll
Yeah.
say.
But you know
So,
what's interesting about well, the Ouroboros, just for people who don't know, the Ouroboros is a snake that is in a circle, it's eating its own tail. And
mhm.
so, just for some people, maybe some people are not familiar with that term, and it's about the eternal cycle of life. But what's also interesting about what you're saying about the mystery schools and how ISIS plays into that is that it's also with the ancient the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. One of the major parts of that is to learn how to go through the different, because in that book they talk about how they show you how to pass through the different trials, before going into seeing Osiris because, like you said, you don't want to be a wandering soul. So that's interesting how that plays into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Isis's name, I've learned, is derived from the name Sirius, as in the Sirius star in the little dog constellation that follows the Orion constellation. Basically, that it's seen as the dog that follows Osiris through life. Basically, in ancient Egyptian cosmology, it's also the jackal, Anubis in a way. Jackals in Egypt were known to literally just eat dead bodies, and that's why they became venerated as a portal into the afterlife. Isis is Osiris's wife, the divine feminine matriarch goddess of Egypt, and a teacher of love, bestower of fertility, and keeper of the knowledge and rites of divine sex magic. That's another basically school you can um, do a deep dive into. Takes a while, but learning sacred sexual magic,
That'll have to
refining
be
your
a
sexual energy.
that'll have to be adults only.
I think so, and I've actually
You
been
know?
considering doing an event either on my own or otherwise just of sex magic that I've been kind of learning and experiencing. But yeah, that's energy work through your sexual energy,
Yeah.
which isn't always just sexual intercourse, but it's also part of it.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, for adults,
Yeah.
but also for those who are mature and advanced enough. Some of the initiatory rites that involve Isis will awaken/reawaken abilities and behaviors of love, compassion, and forgiveness in an initiate. Her divine feminine energy may be beneficial for those who have suffered from trauma, abuse, separation, and loss, as experiencing a communing with her will show you the ways to restore your union with Source. The hurts and dysfunctional versions of you can be just that, left in the past as you instill your new identity with love and Source energies. And that can be one of the benefits after doing an initiation or two with Isis through the 13 initiation course that I know and offer. Um, and so now we move on to Thoth. A lot of people have also heard it pronounced as Toth. Um,
Or Thoth or something like that. There's a
yeah,
weird
some of
different.
these Egyptian names also I've seen it different with different spellings, and so I think over the ages and in different areas too, areas of Egypt and East Africa, they have taken on different spellings and interpretations and pronunciations. But anyway, I noticed Thoth as one pronunciation. Thoth was the ancient Egyptian god of the moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphs. He served as a scribe to the gods, science, art, and magic. Often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think an ibis or an ibis. It doesn't matter.
Ibis,
Yeah.
or a baboon. Animals that were sacred to him. Thoth was believed to be the inventor of writing and the creator of languages. He played a crucial role in maintaining the universe and as such was credited with making the calculations for the establishment of the heavens, our stars, the earth, and everything contained within. Thoth was also known for his role in the judgment of the dead, where he weighed the hearts of the deceased against the feather of truth, Mot's feather, and reported the results to Osiris. Thoth is credited with having compiled and written the Emerald Tablets, a concise work of encrypted knowledge that through the ages has served as the foundations for the study of alchemy. Another thing I want to say about alchemy, a lot of us have heard about it. Some of us call ourselves alchemists and spiritual alchemists. Um, the word, of course, there's also the practice of physical alchemy, which has become known as turning lead into gold through chemistry. I think chemistry and spirituality, as I've heard it, but that's more like the physical side of alchemy. Really, what alchemy is and was before turning lead into gold was a spiritual practice. And the word alchemy literally comes from the city Al-Khamia in Egypt, where this practice was originated, as a spiritual practice of understanding different elements, 4 or 5 different elements of nature, of also relating to elements within the personality, the spirit of gods and goddesses.
Yeah.
And so it's these mystery school inscriptions and encryptions that became what was translated into physical alchemy, because the what was it, European, Western,
I think it's the
the
Greco-Roman Hermes Trismegistus, which was created by the Greeks, which was a
yeah,
combination of
yeah,
Hermes, their god, and Thoth. Yeah.
yeah, anyway, some of the early explorers from outside of Egypt, yeah, that sounds correct, from Greece and Rome, um, found these texts of alchemy. Speaking of translating lead into gold, uh, using elements like salt and sulfur, water and earth, fire, air, um, and yeah, also physical elements, and gold and lead corresponding to different states of spiritual energy too, as I understand it. But so then they translated that into like actually finding these physical elements and combining them. And so that's a bit about alchemy there.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about Thoth is that it says that Thoth was an Atlantean priest king who founded a colony
Hmm.
in ancient Egypt, and that he wrote the Emerald Tablets in his native Atlantean language that was later translated by the Egyptians. And so I think that it goes back to the concept of how the Atlantis plays a big part in Egypt's history, but also the knowledge that was gained by from the Atlanteans. Because if you know about Solon, who was a Greek, I think he was related. I think he was the great 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 grandfather of I can't remember if it was Pythagoras or of Socrates or Plato. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. But he talked about how Solon was working with a Egyptian priest, and that Atlantis definitely existed, and that many people that left Atlantis came to Egypt and brought their culture with them. And so it doesn't surprise me that Thoth was considered the creator of the Emerald Tablets, and that there's a lot of information from the Emerald Tablets that found its way into the mystery schools, and that this is why Thoth is one of the 3 gods, as we're talking about now, that was related to the mystery schools, because he brought that knowledge with him. So when you talk about the mystery schools, you're talking actually about Atlantis in many ways, and about how
Hmm.
advanced they were. So that's kind of interesting. It's hard to separate the two.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Before I get into other gods and goddesses, I just have like a few more. Um, is Did you say there was another caller who wanted to call in, or
Yeah,
anyone
I think that
has a question?
I'm gonna ask them to call in, and but I'll let you continue and then we will bring them up online once you're ready.
Okay. I also have a special couple of prayers coming up too with the goddesses. So this is Bastet, and I have a story. Actually, it was I want to say a couple of months ago now. Um, when I was doing some physical manual labor tasks, and I just heard this word in my head, goddess or name goddess Bastet, and I hadn't known that name before. I hadn't heard people talk about her. I I kind of I remembered that name. I don't think I wrote it down, but I'm actually quite used to hearing telepathic nudges like that. A name, a word actually. Like this is the way spirit talks to me often is um, I hear a word usually, and sometimes a highly advanced word, sometimes a medical word or a word of physics or philosophy, and I look it up later and learn a definition, and it's exactly what I'm going through. And so it's interesting that spirit actually talks to me in words and names that I'm actually not familiar with and are kind of beyond my understanding at the time. But Bastet approached me after I started getting deeper and deeper into these Egyptian initiations. I actually started this work, I'll say 3 years ago, I think, after while after my walk-in, after I got this Temples of Light book initially, it was gifted to me. But then I took a break from this book and this work, and then um, yeah, it's been a few years, but I picked it up again late last year, and so it's been a transformative process. But then after I started working with the gods and goddesses and initiations again, Bastet approached me, and so she asked me to also make a YouTube video, which I've been making weekly YouTube videos with the gods and goddesses and channeling their energies and symbolism and their temple energies too, to make these healing chambers, I call them. But they're on my YouTube channel, which is just New Being Hypnosis, I know my business. And so I'm basically creating this also mystery school course you can see on your on my own, kind of channeling them and um, making these videos they're guiding me to make. Um,
You can link all of that information down below so people can have access to that. But I do have a caller that just called in now.
okay.
So I just wanted to say, so hi Ingrid, thank you for calling into the show.
Hi there.
Hi. So what's your question for this evening?
Well, you mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm curious as to how much um, you have found in your studies that Egypt is linked to Atlantis. I mean, even at the beginning, you said, Crystal,
Mm-hmm.
that Egypt was known to come out of the primordial waters, and I
Mm-hmm.
just saw that as like, yeah, it came out of the sinking of Atlantis. So
Exactly.
I'm just wondering how much of that you have seen, or have you seen that?
Okay. Well, that's an excellent question. And you know what? I think that, you make a good point because you're right. Coming out of the primordial waters means that it means that it has its link to waters because Atlantis sank. And now what's interesting is that if anybody of you know of Graham Hancock has a very interesting show on Netflix, and he's talking about and he's been talking about this for a while, about how there was a greater culture long before, and he's made the connection to the Ice Age, and how the Ice Age, for some reason, melted very, very quickly. There was a shift in the planetary the way the planetary was positioned, and as a result there was a great deal of water that melted very, very quickly and ended up flooding a lot of places. So there's a lot of flood myths throughout the world, and obviously Atlantis was one of them. And so Atlantis being sunk by the water, and all that knowledge came from the primordial waters. So that's an excellent comment, Ingrid. Thank you so much for that. Did you want to chime in, Troy, about Atlantis?
I do,
Egypt?
and a tidbit that I read many, many years ago, might have been around 10 years ago. No, probably more, 15-ish years ago, almost. Was from a book called The Mayan Ouroboros from popular author Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Yeah.
And in it, he tells the story of Atlantis, the history of some of what went on there and why it sank. Um, anyway, um, basically, part of the end of the story of Atlantis that he shared, which I think this also is, I suspect, his historical knowledge that he knows from his, I think his Mayan um, ancestor, if I'm correct. Anyway, he says that when Atlantis was sinking, basically, some of us have heard of the ideas, and I think Pythagoras said this too, um, is that Atlantis was a city with like three rings of it.
Concentric rings, yeah.
Yeah, concentric rings. And so basically what Tronvalo described is that the middle central part of that city was actually probably the temple complex that was closed off for like priests and priestesses and initiates. And they were known as the Nakals. And they were the ones who actually knew how to teleport physically
Oh.
and levitate and things like that. And because they knew that Atlantis was sinking, and as it was too, literally, then some of them teleported to Tibet. And today we still have Tibetan monks who are known to teleport and levitate. Um, and many other survivors, though, some with some knowledge of these spiritual ways, basically had to leave Atlantis, Drunvalo says, on canoes or boats. And some of them journeyed westward and became what we know as the Mayans. And some of them journeyed eastward and developed what we know as ancient Egypt. And that's energetically a story I feel is accurate and probably true, at least to the best of knowledge we may have today of how Egypt is linked to Atlantis, as well as the ancient Mayan and Mesoamerican traditions are as well. Because crystal skulls were also said to be in Atlantis, and
Yeah.
quite a few ancient crystal skulls are known in Mesoamerican regions, Mexico, and the northern parts of South America, especially, as well as some crystal skulls have ended up in Tibet
Yeah.
and northeastern or northwestern China, Tibet, Nepal regions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are, I think that's where Atlantis actually went. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
how some of this relates to Atlantean teachings,
Yeah. I
what
just
became of them.
I just wanted to just correct the comment I made before about Solon. He was related to Plato, so I don't feel like an idiot now.
Oh yeah, Plato was the one who talked about Atlantis, not
Exactly.
Pythagoras. Another
But I have
Greek
I,
name.
I have a comment here from Eternal Student, and he's talking about the Younger Dryas they believed was caused by meteorites hitting North America ice sheet. And Randall Carson is also a great person to follow along with Graham Hancock. So yeah, so the Younger Dryas period is what I should have been referring to. I'm sorry, but thank you, Eternal Student, for putting me back on track. That is what Graham Hancock was talking about, and about how a lot of that ice sheet melted, and because it melted very quickly, it caused a lot of water, and it caused a lot of the flooding to take place at that time, because everybody had that. Everybody has that flood myth story. So it's definitely something that is. It's just that it's something that a lot of people are now starting to take seriously, because now that we found this structure in the ancient Egyptian temple, those columns there, we're starting to realize that the Egyptians were obviously far ahead. And I know that sometimes when we talk about technology of the past, and people say, "Oh, but you know, Atlantis couldn't exist; it didn't have all these crazy technologies." But we have those technologies now. We have, tablets or little things that speak to us. They have lights. We can find information. It depends on how you interpret it. And the idea of teleportation is, from what I've heard, there are branches of the military that have access to that kind of technology, that are teleporting from the Earth to Mars and from Earth to the Moon. And so, as much as it sounds like it's crazy and it's weird and wild, we definitely have the technology to do many, many different things. So if we can have people who can do remote viewing, then we can definitely have crystal skulls. We can have a whole bunch of different technologies. What they had in Atlantis is sort of where we are not now. So no surprises there. And one last comment from Lemonade here is Hermes Trismegistus, the Kabylion, and the 7 Hermetic Principles. It was just much more quiet than other audio. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was something else. But yeah, it's John. I have another comment here from Goa. John Peniel wrote about the Atlanteans immigrating to Tibet. So it looks like we have, he says here, children of the law of one and the lost teachings of Atlantis. So there's a lot of information out there. And I think that we're starting to see that as more discoveries happen, that we're starting to see that what we used to consider mythology or crazy and hocus pocus mythology is actually the real history that we've ignored, and that has been ignored by modern science up until now. So I'll let you get back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's Bastet. By the way, I'll just read this quickly, and also here's a prayer that feel free to recite after me, and then we can read it together. But Bastet is the goddess of cats, home, protection, and fertility in ancient Egyptian traditions. The temple dedicated to Bastet is subterranean, requiring one to climb down steps to enter, and is located near modern-day Alexandria. Her name seems to have linguistic roots as far south as Namibia, and the characters of her name often refer to oil, such as anointing oil, suggesting a sacred and empowering quality of this goddess. She's often depicted as a cat, a lioness, or a woman with a feline head, and often with kittens around her feet to represent her quality of fertility. And here's this Bastet prayer that I found on magicalspot.com. I want to be fair and link or share their website as my source for this, but feel free to repeat after my reading of this, but here it goes. O Bastet, goddess of cats, of fertile women, of children, hear me out, hear my will to connect with you, truly, deeply, completely. I am open, ready, I am here to let your fecund energy embrace me. I am open and ready. I am here to let your strength and your caring and wild energy be with me. Give me prosperity fertility, more awareness about my own life, my own femininity, my real energy. So be it. And I'll I'll be sure to get my a link to my YouTube channel in the chat below so Crystal can
Sure.
include it. But I did recently, actually it was must have been a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I created a healing chamber, initiation chamber with Bastet video in her temple underground. So that also has her anointing the listener or initiate into more of the the energies of their soul, basically, is what that is. And she guided me to do that. With these healing chambers, I really listen to the gods and goddesses and take my time with them, and they come through pretty strongly. So here's Sekhmet. I actually have a few slides for her, but here, yeah, she's an intense one, I can say.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more popular Hathor feline goddesses of Egypt too. Also, Sekhmet is the sister of Bastet. Some people depict them and link them together, but they are definitely sisters, two separate cat goddesses with two separate energies, but also kind of like two sides of the same divine feminine coin, if you could call it that.
Okay.
Bastet is the more gentle side. Sekhmet is the more intense side. Sekhmet is the sister of Bastet, and they belong to the Hathor group of Egyptian lioness goddesses. Known as the Mighty One, legend has it that she was sent to Earth by Ra as an aspect of the Eye of Ra to unleash her might on the humans who betrayed Ra's laws of creation. There is now an annual Hathor/Sekhmet holiday in Egypt to celebrate her might that upheld the the just laws of creation, supporting the work of Ma'at, who upholds the balance of life and fertility within the duality of death and destruction. The black granite statue, one of actually 370 that has been found at the temple complex of Karnak, is world renowned for the photographic and witnessed and spiritual anomalies that are normal surrounding it. Um, I've heard of this and watched a video earlier too of a lot of people who often visit the statue in Karnak as tourists. Um, Sometimes they see a black cat, like a shadow of it or a spirit of it um, walking by quickly, or also see Bastet walk around, move. People take photos of the statue, and either it turns out with orbs or like multiple overlaid impressions of it, or just a white screen or various things. And sometimes her statue ends up literally glowing and emitting light, even though they're in a dark room without lights coming in. Yeah, Bastet is quite an intense, magical, phenomenal, mystical, and healing energy too. Or Sekhmet, I should say, not Bastet, but Sekhmet. Sekhmet can be invoked or prayed to for healing and medicinal purposes, as she is known as the plague goddess and can either unleash or repel plagues. She will fight for your justice in times of imbalance, as she has the might of Ra, the sun god, and is a defender of Maat, the goddess of justice and balance. So here I actually found a 14 um, praises of Sekhmet. So there's a few slides of this, so I'll read through these kind of quickly or swiftly.
Mhm.
Number 1, homage to you, O Sekhmet, in your power, in your strength, in your beauty, in your divine manifestations, bestower of the great wisdom, repelling chaos, the holy flame coming forth from the Wadjet Eye of Ra. I want to say also Wadjet, this is one of multiple spellings of another goddess who's depicted as the Cobra or Cobra goddess, but not so well known as I understand it. Praise 2. Homage to you, O Sekhmet, O Mother of the Flame of eternal life, bringing forth all life with her thunderous roar of fire, driving back the impenetrable darkness from the hearts lost in the madness of chaos. Praise 3. Homage to you, O Sekhmet, and the goddess of light, the great female Bedet upon her golden orb, as universal savioress, the mother of the oppressed, and the greatest of physicians and doctor of hearts, hearer of the dejected, the hearer of prayers coming forth from the divine body of love. Praise 4, O divine ardor coming forth from the eternal dwelling within, I think it's supposed to heat heart, but it says heat.
Mhm.
Heart of the heat of the heart of Ta, the beloved of Ta, of his body. She embraces Ta with the heat of her lower body, as the great bestower of the eternal flame of love joys, giver of the warmth of love, the maker of sweetness, and of the fire in the heart.
These are really beautiful. These passages, and would you say that they are in some ways related to the ancient mystery schools, the Egyptian mystery schools?
Yeah, I'd say so. These seem to be actual, what is it? Kind of renditions, kind of including the energy of Sekhmet.
Mm-hmm.
The other gods and goddesses also have their own unique energies and it seems prayers associated or it can be used for them. Yeah, we should get into also or do another event also about prayers.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
prayers for gods and goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind? I actually need to plug in my computer. The battery is
Okay, is that
getting
the
low.
beeping we're hearing? So
Um,
yeah, so
I
I'll
haven't
let you
heard
plug it
beeping,
in. Yeah, but
but it's giving me a notice.
oh, okay, no worries. So while Troy is plugging his computer, I just wanted to sort of I hear Eternal Student had an interesting comment, and Eternal Student says, "What if Atlantis was a global culture?" And it's true. A lot of people have talked about how Atlantis was a global culture, and that it's similar to the way in which the United States today, in some ways, is a global culture, right? So you have the United States, which is its own country, and similar to what the way Atlantis was, it's its own country. But yet there is so much dissemination of American culture around the world that if you talk about New York, or if you talk about Mickey Mouse, or if you talk about McDonald's, people in other parts of the world will probably know it. So it's very very it's been said that Atlantis is definitely a global culture, and that we have the same thing. And it's what's interesting, oddly enough, is that they call the United, America the new Atlantis. Go figure. So that many different comparisons can be held with those two. So did you manage to get your computer up and running there, Troy?
I did, yeah,
Okay.
it's plugged in and you did get the, yeah, I just got the charging cord. So it's good. Now I
Okay,
can
great.
continue with these praises. Praise 5. She is Sekhmet, the house of the lofty one, the great cow, the darling of Ta, the almighty bull. She receives the sacred, she receives the seed of Ta within her body, bringing forth the divine love of Ta, becoming the great mother of creation in her name of Sekhmet, the mysterious lady, the hand of Ta, the great god. I also want to clarify if anyone doesn't know, Ta, Ptah, is the name of a god who's seen as basically the one um, creator god in Egypt, as I understand it, like the creator of the whole world. Um, there are multiple creator gods kind of within that, but Ta is like the um, the monotheistic or larger god of Egypt. She is Sekhmet, the house of the lofty one, who is the mistress of love. She is joined with Ta, the lord of the flaming member of love. She grasps firmly the noble manhood of Ta, causing to come forth into being the seed of Ta as all created things. Praise 7. Adoration to Sekhmet, the great mother of the heart's wisdom, the dispeller of ignorance, the quieter of the heart with the peace of divine knowledge. Praise her, O all people of the shrine of Ta, entourage of the Netjeru, gods. She seizes the heart, filling it with eternal wisdom, annihilating darkness, giving birth to the illumination of the great heart. I adore primordial Sekhmet, creatrix of the gods, the first of goddesses, the high consort of the great god Ta, holder of the exalted thrones of Ta. She is the creation power, the supreme spirit of Ta, whose power within all things, the governess of the heavenly mansion, the power of powers, traversing creation. She traverses the bodies of all living beings as the great female spirit of life, creatrix of the wonders of life. Praise 9. I adore primordial Sekhmet, foremost goddesses, foremost of goddesses, and first mother within the noon. She is the powerful one who is the mother, exalted as Neith in the primordial beginning, terrifying as the flame illuminated Eye of Ra, fire goddess, great in dominance, as Sekhmet, the vanquisher, the lady of fiery arrows, exalted upon her standard as Sekhmet, the vanquisher of sins, great of slaughter. Praise 10. I adore primordial Sekhmet, the lady of the flame. I say, homage to you, O goddess, of the killing time, the unquenchable one, the drinker of blood, the powerful hearted lioness raging in her eye. O Sekhmet, who is she of the green, the consumer of chaos, coming forth from the house of the flame. She is Sekhmet, Wadjet, the mistress of destruction, the breath of flame, delivering truth from chaos, delivering all her children from the impenetrable darkness. Praise 11. I adore primordial Sekhmet, the universal Savioress, who is the powerful one. She of the throne, the greatest of powerful pronouncements, the one at the forefront of goddesses, the mother of the great goddesses, readied with the flames as the greatest power of heaven. I take refuge in you, O Sekhmet, a great mother of the gods, the savioress of all souls. I take refuge in your power, O Mother Sekhmet, Mother of Mercy. These are the last few praises. Praise 12. I adore primordial Sekhmet, the Lady of Illumination, coming forth with the great wisdom, making to shine the power of wisdom, making to flourish the heart of divine wisdom for eternity and everlasting. She is the wisdom body of Ta, his Holy Spirit enveloping creation. She is the divine messenger of the first sacred teachings of the heart of Ta. Praise 13. I adore primordial Sekhmet, the sanguine lady upon her divine lotus, the fierce red-maned lion, the dancer upon blood, the smiter of the heart of Ta. I take refuge in you, O Sekhmet, savioress of the souls of mankind, purifier of the world, making strong the heart above chaos. Praise 14. I adore primordial Sekhmet, the divine mother of my heart. I take refuge in her strength. I take refuge in the power of her Ka. I take refuge in her indestructible wisdom. I offer unto the life of my heart. I offer unto her the life of my soul. I offer unto her the obeisance of my will. Unto this greatest of goddesses I give the perfection of my Ka, the sealing. In the presence of Sekhmet, the mistress of the heart, I open up my heart unto her divine Ka, making a shrine of my heart, making to flourish the holy way. I adore the great mother of the holy mysteries, she who knows all the mysteries of the heart. She has given unto my true heart the sacred fire of the soul mansion of Ta. Homage to you in peace. So that's a tribute to Sekhmet, major, intense, and motherly goddess.
Yeah, that was really beautiful, and that I didn't realize that there were so many praises to Sekhmet. That's very beautiful, and I do have a comment here from Eternal Student, and Eternal Student is saying she is not simply good or evil, but embodies a duality of power, and healing, balance, and destruction, and I think that those who are initiates that are a part of the mystery schools would have to understand those kind of concepts in order to be fully balanced, because the whole point of being in the mystery schools was to be a balanced individual. Obviously not being too, I mean, you could be good, but without, good and evil balance each other out. And it was important to have a balance and to have the eyes to see, to have the perception to be able to see that. not only in yourself, but in the gods and the goddesses, but also in the universe itself. Would you say that this is the case?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely initiates of Egypt. I suppose a lot of other traditions would teach this, that you have to have contrast and respect the contrast of life, and also understand contrast and experience it. Then to be able to truly appreciate and more deeply know, as well as through these types of initiations and initiations I offer, and this tradition is not just know light and contrast, but truly integrate and become light, so that even when you experience moments and situations of ugliness, darkness, chaos, um, other things happening that are so lovely,
Yeah.
then you can react with patience, you can react with compassion, you can respond with intelligence, you can find solutions, um, also listen to source, ask gods, goddesses, angels, um, for help, as well as ancestors. And yeah, it's like through these initiations, you also become light, so that then there's always contrast, there's always light and dark. There are entire realms and dimensions. This is what my Seraphim has taught me, Seraphim guides, that there are actually dimensions and worlds that thrive in a certain frequency of darkness without light, but not evil. Um, so yeah, mystery schools are for those who basically want to become enlightened, but are super serious about it.
And when we first started, we were talking about the mystery schools in terms of many of the different rites and practices that they had to become the full initiate, to become fully realized. If we were to bring it in today's context, especially with, for example, some of the work that you're doing, how would you say, what are some of the modern day applications of working with the mystery schools? And maybe you wanted to sort of talk a little bit about some of the quantum healing you're doing with with the with your quantum hypnosis. Would you be able to talk with us about that?
Yeah, in that context, a lot of my journey over the last um, 5 years as a walk-in, and then about 4 years now as a hypnotist, has been sort of focused around healing trauma. And so that's become one of my specialties, working with quite a few now, government mind control and satanic ritual abuse survivors. The satanic ritual abuse is also one of the practices that is unfortunately employed still in this the secret government funded mind control experimental programs. Anyway, I've helped a number of individuals already who've been through those, um, heal from their traumas, the ways of some have literally been torn apart, and tortured, and heal from that trauma. And this is also kind of what the Egyptian mystery schools teach, or the result of them. It goes back to the Osiris myth. It's like the central part of the healing aspect of this is the Osiris myth represents this process that each one of us can go through in life, of whether it's government sanctioned mind control abuse, or just simply like abuse from family members and maybe even partners and other people throughout life, or just mistreatment, um, or um, loss, death, poverty. There's all kinds of ways we can experience trauma and get damaged in this life. But Osiris represents the quality of having been torn apart into multiple pieces, been fractured, been traumatized, and then symbolically with the divine feminine healing energies, you get picked up and brought back together to become a whole, except the Osiris myth says that Isis was not able to find his phallus, the main divine masculine aspect, but she did put him back together and then conceive of Horus from him, their falcon son, who becomes kind of like a savior actually in their myth. Um, that's another story, but yeah, that's sort of my journey or gist of it, as well as emotional and relationship healing has been a big part of it. Not only with romantic relationships, in my marriage. Um, I'll say that my marriage has been a journey, um, just like other relationships. Every couple has their own unique differences, fundamental differences, but the sweet spot is finding the balance and the way of coming onto the same page in that. Um, Has that answered the question a bit, or
Yeah.
did I get too far off of that,
Yeah,
Crystal?
no, it's fine. It's perfect. I just wanted to sort of see. It's interesting that you're able to do that type of work, and you talked about how you've helped people who've been through such horrible experiences to come out the other side and to grow as an individual and to change. And I think that if we were to make the association with the mystery schools, is that that's definitely part of the right, is to go through certain experiences, to go through some of these challenges, some of these trials that the priests would give to the initiates, so that they would come out the other side having gone through an experience. And I think that in today's world, this is sort of how we could bridge the two, as it were. You know?
Yeah, and as a hypnotherapist, actually one of the first parts, this is interesting, but one of the first um, sort of tests that a student has to go through in the school I went through, HMI, the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, they have you understand and learn about the history of hypnosis, which dates back to ancient Egypt. And I believe also ancient Atlantis, maybe even an earlier civilization we call Tartaria. The practice of hypnosis actually does have its root origins in Egypt in these temple practices of the ways of these initiations. Um, the initiate, usually it's quite often one person with like a guide or a teacher initiating them, or sometimes, of course, they do go through these tests alone to prove themselves. But um, basically, part of it is hypnosis. The person gets guided into a trance-like journey with the gods and goddesses and symbols and temple rites, um, to not only after curbing their fears and mastering some of their fears, but then experiencing and being initiated, activated, um, healed, and put back together by the energies that the gods and temples have to offer. And quite often, these initiations I found only need to be done once with these gods, which is the amazing part, because the other hypnotherapy sessions I offer, especially like past life regression and some others, Memory regression can be multiple sessions exploring a past life or exploring missing time, um, and also healing other traumas, because trauma healing usually requires 3, 6, or more sessions. Um, the one of the functions of hypnosis is the repetition, and the more you do these sessions, the more it gets instilled in the subconscious. But the power of these gods, I'll say, seems to be that quite often you only need to do these initiations once, but sometimes 2 or 3 times is also very beneficial to refresh the energies and knowledge of them. But um, yeah, so that's sort of the benefit of this 13 initiation course, Egyptian initiation course that I offer, is instead of going through, sometimes people do more than 13 sessions, even 20 or more hypnotherapy sessions just to work on one issue, or sometimes multiple issues. But then you only need to do this once, but also by doing this 13 initiation course that seems traditional in Egypt also is more than just healing. It's more than just therapy. It's bringing all of the parts of your soul together, learning how to connect with the cosmos, um, learning how to connect with the gods, the elements, receiving downloads, and expanding your ability to receive downloads, and these various elements of enlightenment. Um,
That is amazing. So, did you want to continue with the other gods, or how are you feeling? How are you
yeah,
holding up?
yeah, I have another, what is this? Just this is the last god I want
Okay,
to
great.
um, read through, and then I have another slide I want to present. But Khnum is a god um, who I actually resonate strongly with. I'd say that it's important to experience Osiris and experience his resurrection quality, and then later experience Khnum, because Khnum is the ram-headed creator god who is said to have created humans from water and clay, which is, I believe, symbolic of the water and minerals our bodies are made of. His energy is that of divine masculine, but with a deeply caring and nurturing quality. He is known to hold his greatest creation of humanity in deep reverence and love. Akin to Osiris, he is a god of fertility, life, resurrection, and creation. The multi-layered temple, or kind of temples, at Elephantine Island in the Nile Delta is devoted to Khnum, where he can be connected with, along with his son and consort Satis. Elephantine Island is an island in the Nile Delta, which has somewhat soft ground. Throughout the ages, several temples have been built, one on top of the other, that has settled partly or fully into the ground. This succession represents the progression or progressive chain of incarnations that the soul must experience for evolutionary growth. Khnum can also be connected with via the ram-headed sphinxes that once completed a 2-mile row that connected the Karnak and Luxor temples in ancient times. By the way, the Karnak temple complex is massive and the largest temple complex of Egypt. And it's actually multiple temples technically within the Karnak temple complex, including the Osirion, which is another one that I could go into, but I don't have this presentation. Um, yeah, it has still active geothermal water pools that were turned into pools within the temple. Very neat. But Khnum's energy, while worked with in an initiatory session, is activating, awakening, stimulating, clarifying, grounding, and will leave you with a sense of being tuned in to source/soul every single day. His energy will protect you from harm and prevent you from ever hitting a rock bottom low point in life, as he always assertively will whisper to you, get up, rise up, show up. So yeah, he's a potent and powerful, but also activating God and initiation energy. I also wanted to offer everyone who's watching my access to my 13-week Egyptian spiritual alchemy course.
Wow.
Normally a $1,560 value, but I'm offering $780, 50% off with the code NBH50 to viewers of this. And this intensive course will bring you through a journey of the traditional ancient Egyptian initiation journeys. These initiatory practices can be done from your home and will deepen your union with Source via meeting the gods and goddesses. These wise ones, plus their ancient energies, will teach you their knowledge, wisdom, alchemy, and help in your healings. And that's the amazing part about these initiations, is that they can be done where you are too. But the temples of Egypt can be connected with kind of like astrally or energetically by distance. They're not just, it's good to visit them physically. That's on my bucket list to do more of.
Yeah, I'd
But-
love to go to Egypt. That would be the absolute dream. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Definitely that's on the agenda for me, but yeah, the temple energies can be transmitted also energetically. So thank you all for watching.
Yeah.
And that is Beyond the Pyramids. And this is really just an introduction
Absolutely.
to a little bit about the gods and goddesses and
Absolutely.
deep initiatory wisdom and school of Egypt.
Well, you know what? I think that definitely that wraps it up, because there is so much to be had, so much to learn. And I think the fact that you have this course that you're offering is incredible, because I think that this course, there's so much. I know Troy has so much information, and he is such an amazing teacher, and he has so much to offer. And his energy is just amazing. A lot of people that have worked with him have just said, like, my God, he's absolutely the best. So I would definitely encourage anyone who wants to learn more about the Egyptian mystery schools and to have a one-on-one, or, to be a part of a course that explores this deeply, because we can only do so much here on YouTube. You really need to work with a teacher, because that's how it worked. Initiates worked closely with a learned teacher, and that teacher guided them through the trials, guided them through the different lessons, guided them through the different gods and goddesses, guided them on how to reach those gods and goddesses through meditation and through sacred ritual, and worked with them on how to connect with the higher source. So I think that this course being offered by Troy is really the next best thing to wanting to really do a serious deep dive into the Egyptian mystery schools. So I will be putting that information here at the bottom, but here's the screen right now. And at that price, for a 13-week program, I think is absolutely phenomenal. So I just highly encourage anybody who's very serious to reach out to Troy at New Being Hypnosis to find out more about this course. And like I said, I'll be posting it below. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Troy. I know sometimes I blah, blah, blah. But I really, really enjoyed working with you. And I think this is amazing. I think that people gained so much information from what you had to provide. And I think that people will really be very happy to take part in your course. And did you have anything else that you wanted to provide to our audience this evening?
Um, that's that's the main offering related to this topic. Um, of course, I have other courses too. Um, I guess spiritual alchemy is the main one that I've been doing with clients, been doing with people bringing them to this initiation course, often with amazing results. And then also, it's not just Egyptian and this spiritual alchemy, but other other like past lives, other healings, and also other ETs, beings. Sometimes dragons and other types of beings show up in each session. Um, I also offer these in 90-minute sittings, so that's a bit longer than just an hour-long session that a lot of other therapists and healers will offer. Um, I've honestly found that an hour is it feels a little bit rushed to me, especially in a hypnotic trance session, especially for past life regression also is another service to offer. That's something I like to take my time with as well as these initiations. Some of them can be a little bit long too, these journeys to like go through. They're step by step sort of structured.
Oh, well,
Um, yeah, that's the main thing.
yeah,
As
well,
well as,
oh, sorry.
oh, I just wanted to also
Yeah,
mention
sure.
that I'm offering a newer course that it's kind of like in its restructuring. It could be 12 or 18 weeks, but called Excelsior Revival.
Okay.
And that's um, for anyone who's been through, especially a rock bottom low point, for anyone who is kind of frustrated, also um, fully or partly, or trying to find freedom from like the news, the system, society, um, becoming more free as a being, a sovereign being. Um, that's helping with spiritual evolution, finding also your unique soul's voice and purpose. And then not only that, but finding the more like physical and tangible and practical manifestations of that that we will be activating and turning into what you can turn into a life for yourself. So that's Excelsior Revival, also listed on newbeinghypnosis.com, which did you see it? Crystal, I sent you the link to
Yeah,
that
sure.
website,
Well, I will
my
put all that
booking link.
information below, definitely. And it sounds a lot that this is what I like about what you're doing, Troy. It's because everything that you're talking about is exactly what we talk about in the Egyptian mystery schools. That it's about rebuilding, it's about reworking, it's about coming from a different place and becoming out the other side as a better person. So everybody, this is an absolute treasure. And I think you can learn so much from Troy and his approach to healing. So I want to just say thank you, Troy. We added another comment here from someone that says, a great presentation, Troy and Crystal, and I love studying Egyptian energies. It's a message from AML, and she says here, I am a daughter of Isis and I love her teachings. So thank you for covering all that. And really, the extent of knowledge that you have about the gods and goddesses is really, really impressive. And so it's just absolutely incredible. So I really want to say, everybody, look up the information on the new being hypnosis. I think you can learn a lot. And this, like I said, is the modern version of the Egyptian schools. A really great opportunity to dive in deep. And Troy will be coming back to talk more about other work that he's doing. So we really look forward to that. So I want to say thank you to everybody for being with us here tonight. And I want to just say thank you so much to Troy for an amazing presentation. And it was so good to work with you. And I really look forward to working with you again. So at that, please like and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you again at our next presentation. So thank you. And love and light. Good night.